Heist. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll.
What's up, Dungeon Dicks? Matt and Rob here with some hot and sweaty advice and hard truths. So buckle up, dice sluts, and get ready for some sexy dungeon talk. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I just for the first time.
Rob, is this for a YouTube channel?
I just listened to the first 30 seconds first 30 seconds of an episode of what's it called? Call Her Daddy, which is a millions dollars podcast on the Barstool Network. I don't even know if you remember, there was an episode in the New York Times or an article in the New York Times about how the founders had a falling out.
We've had similar problems, but we've powered through. But and then I was like, wait, this is $1 million podcast? It's one of Barstool Network's flagship properties. And so I listened to it came up on Twitter and I was like, well, that's what this is. It's just some we
girl
need to sex it up. We're both
cursing awkwardly about sex.
We're both himbos.
Yeah. Is this what you little piggies like? Is this what you want? This is what makes us popular?
We could sex it up.
Ugh. The point is, it was awful, I guess, is the takeaway here.
We don't have to include this, but if people want tales of Dungeons and Dragons and sex, have you ever slept with one of your players?
Not while they were a player, but people who I had been romantically involved with previously or afterwards did sometimes play in my games. How about you, Matt?
Yes, but again, not during a game.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Is it ethical as a dungeon master? Yes. It's fine. Yeah. Obviously,
are we gonna get canceled?
It's fine.
for the power dynamic. Yeah. Don't sleep with your players. I don't know. Maybe do. Did we already have an episode on getting your significant other to play with you, or what to do if you play with your significant other?
No, we've gotten enough advice letters about my SO has joined my game, etc.
Anyway, we will not be pivoting to sexy dungeon content. I just listen to a few seconds of I think it must be a money laundering operation. I can't figure out why anyone would listen to this podcast, but
I feel like, I don't know if we have any listeners from Boston, but I feel like all Boston things Barstool Sports are like this. I imagine every Dungeons and Dragons game in Boston also has the exact same tone and feel as a drunk Red Sox fan.
It's just
Sox,
just
Bruins, Pats. That's my life. Oh, Celtics.
Just the cleric comforting the fighter, saying, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault."
You were busy reading Gygax, but you hadn't figured out that Crawford and Cook are the new hotness. So you thought you'd regurgitate what you read in the original Dungeon Master's Guide. Sound real smart.
Apologies to any of our listeners from Boston. I've never been to Boston, so I'm just repeating stereotypes. Please don't be mad. Oh, I have one more thing for you, Matt, before we get to our actual content.
Yeah, we're going to talk about one-page RPGs today, just so you know.
Yeah, sorry, what are we talking about? So we're going to talk, there's been an announcement by Wizards about diversity, and Matt talked a little bit about, what's been happening with the protest, George Floyd, with just the comic book and RPG and nerd industries, and how they are not great about race, and Wizards tried to respond to this. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to answer some letters. But first, Matt, I have just a quick question for you.
Fire away.
So if you will, answer for me, A, B, and C. Briefly describe one difference between the economy of British North American colonies in the Chesapeake region, such as Virginia and Maryland, and the economy of the middle colonies, such as Pennsylvania and New York. B, briefly describe one similarity between the economy of the Chesapeake colonies and the economy of the middle colonies. And C, briefly explain one reason for a difference between the economy of the Chesapeake colonies and the economy of the middle colonies. Confine your response to the period of 1607 to 1754.
Oh my God, are you asking me a U.S. history AP question?
Yes,
I've been grading world history for the last 12...
I'm sorry, I forgot it was Sorry, I forgot it was world
But that's
history.
okay.
Anyway,
I can
apologize,
say
everybody.
that one similarity is they're both very much connected to the broader Atlantic economy, to the British Caribbean. One main difference, right, is that while the middle colony or the Chesapeake colonies very much focused on large slave labor camps, saying plantations around.
That's right, slave labor
camps. While the middle colonies like Pennsylvania and stuff also were involved in the slave economy, but in a very different way, producing naval goods and foodstuffs that were anything that was used for export was often shipped to those lower colonies, the Carolinas, and the British Caribbean. It's all one big slave economy.
You didn't have to answer that, but I'm glad you did, Matt. Matt has been nose deep in AP essay grading for 10 days, and I wanted to punish him.
Thank you for that punishment.
So it was unkind.
It was very unkind. The College Board, thankfully, they will never find this podcast, but they suck ass. They should be nationalized.
So let's talk about this this Wizards statement that they put out, right? This came out last week, midweek. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Some highlights are one of the explicit design goals of 5th edition D&D is to depict humanity in all its beautiful diversity by depicting characters who represent an array of ethnicities, gender identities, sexual orientations, and beliefs. This is true, and again, wasn't particularly bold, but I'm sure you'll remember that some people were real mad about gender-neutral language and the use of she and they when the book came out. Again, not a whole lot, but just a little bit made some D&D fans real mad. The art
was, I think, more diverse in its depictions of what especially player character art in the player's handbook, more diverse than we've gotten in any of the other D&D editions. Again, nothing like incredibly groundbreaking, but it was nice to see.
This matters, but I want to be clear that representation is not enough. And even if it were, Pathfinder is still better than this. Sorry, Wizards, but Pathfinder, if we're just these, the art depicts diversity of human beings. Sorry, you're still lagging behind Paizo, which has plenty of problems of its own. But this is a good thing. Anyway, so this is mostly about the specific races in Dungeons & Dragons. So they mention orcs and drow as the primary ones. And Matt and I have talked about orcs and drow and how they're problematic. And when we include them in our games, we radically change them because just an evil race is just sort of a very dull idea to me, even if it isn't racist. It is, but just by itself, the idea that a whole species is just inherently bad is just very, very boring to me. So good for them. D&D has, or Wizards has said they're going to present and here's the thing. So they say, we present these two races in a new light in our recent books, Eberron, Rising from the Last War, and Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. Where true. This
is the one thing that sort of pissed me off about this statement, and that we're trying to do better, but it's the Eberron book came out a long time ago, and then the 5th edition book went back to the same tropes. So it's I mean, you could have been doing, they're like, oh, look, we're on the track to getting this right.
Well, and that wasn't even work done by Wizards, right? That was Keith Baker and Matt Mercer creating slightly more interesting takes on these traditionally evil races. I don't want to give Wizards any credit for this, and I'm kind of annoyed that they took credit for it, because that wasn't any push from within to be orcs aren't evil anymore. And before we move on from orcs and drow, I this has always been dumb. Tolkien himself struggled immensely.
Tolkien himself,
with the question.
A huge racist. Right.
Okay. Yeah. I actually think Tolkien needs an ordinary amount of racism for a
man born in South Africa.
Yeah, a white English man in the 50s.
Sure.
Which is an unacceptable amount of racism, but honestly, I think he was pretty okay. But that being said, a person who definitely wasn't good on race was still like, oh, I don't know. There's something not quite right about orcs being, like, irredeemably evil. How do I deal with this? And he never did, like, figure it out. But even he, the creator of orcs, was like, this is not quite right. I don't like that they are, predestined to be evil. What about their orc souls? So, like, the fact that it has now taken till the year of our Lord 2020 for Wizards of the Coast to be like, maybe orcs aren't all evil, is just like, you don't get a cookie for that.
Yeah. No, and I mean, we've talked about this on at least 3 other episodes. I especially liked our discussion with Paul from the Public Medievalist. So go back and
that was a good one.
Go back and listen to that.
Go back and listen to that one. He had a lot of great things to say about this. Yeah.
I mean, there are some racist tropes that are inherent to the fantasy genre, and there's ways to fix them without, like, throwing away all fantasy, right? You can make fantasy non-reactionary. You just have to do a little bit of work. And we've talked about this on the podcast for, years now. And an easy fix, right, is don't have races that are all evil. Take away these sort of racial stat bonuses that are saying, oh, all of these, this race is all dumb. This race is all wise. And, hey, don't use the word race, right? You're talking about species here. Anyway.
Yeah.
Star Trek. Take a Star Trek approach. Honestly,
take a Star Trek.
What is more interesting, right? That all elves are good and wise, or Star Trek, where you have elves and Romulans who, as has been established in multiple different shows, are one species, right, that have 2 very different cultures and a whole array of complex individuals within each of those cultures.
Matt said elves and Romulans, which is funny because he meant Vulcans and Romulans.
Did I say that?
But Vulcans are space
elves. Right. So, Vulcans and Romulans. It's the same goddamn thing. They're elves, right?
They're elves. They're space elves. But no, this is a good point. And Star Trek got substantially more interesting when they were like, oh, let's give Klingons and Romulans, like, a backstory instead of just being the, like, generic bad guy species, right? Like, let's make them... So anyway, this is long overdue, and, like, as we've discussed, Paizo did a good job. They renamed their races to ancestries. They made everything a lot, like, softer, and this is an easy fix that should have been done ages and ages ago. I'm sure that Wizards is cranky that Paizo took ancestry because it's a good word for this instead of race. They may pick up, I don't know, something else. Maybe they'll just switch to species, but just stop calling them races. Race science is garbage. It always has been. It doesn't make sense. So the other thing that they're doing is...
You know what my favorite science fiction author on this subject of race science is? Stephen J. Goa'uld. The mismeasure of the Stargate.
Stargate. Yeah, the mismeasure of... which got that book right over there.
It's a good one.
Got it from the library. We got it from the... It's a good one. Yeah, I've been meaning to read it in its entirety. So the other thing that they're doing is they're reprinting Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd. Tomb of Annihilation takes place in the not Africa continent, which I can never remember because every time I read something about it, I'm like, Chult. That's right. I'm like, I don't want to know about this. And Curse of Strahd, which I've run, and I gotta admit, I biffed here. I did not do a good job of recognizing the Vistani were a kind of a not so great Romani archetype. I think I didn't do any, like, Romani accents, but I definitely ran Curse of Strahd without, like, making any adjustments here. So, self-crit here, full honesty. So yeah. I think they're going to change the Vistani to be a little bit more culturally neutral and less of just, generic, Romani, traveler, thief assholes. So that's good. Again, no, like, huge cookie here, but good. Like Matt mentioned, they're going to remove stat bonuses or explore options for removing stat bonuses so that, no species is just inherently dumb or strong or whatever. They're including sensitivity readers. And then their last bullet point is that they are going to proactively seek new diverse talent to join our staff and our pool of freelance writers and artists.
So the Wizards staff, especially senior staff that works on Dungeons & Dragons, is overwhelmingly white. And that's a problem they have not addressed.
So this is better than nothing, but when you break down like the actual action that Wizards is doing or has taken, there's not a lot to show. So I gotta say, I'm not impressed. Like, the thing is, if we're talking about like what have you actually done, there really isn't anything. Like, aside from the reprints, which have not happened yet, and work that they already did, I'm not impressed. If you're gonna put out a statement indicating that you do support Black lives and you're trying to do a better job of representing diversity, then you have to do something, right? So I guess I'm gonna reserve like the full fire of my criticism until I see if they actually hire anybody. But until they actually do hire or start using more diverse talent, I'm not impressed. And I know that Matt and I are two white guys.
Our critique is not going to be the best one, but...
Yeah, who gives a shit what we think? But I just, from one all-white podcast to a mostly white organization, do better.
Yeah, I mean, this is an HR statement, Yeah. HR is not going to solve this problem, so...
No, it's a PR statement, and I'm not impressed. And the reason why I'm holding Wizards to a high standard here is because we know there are a lot of Black creators out there, a lot of like diverse talent, especially now more than ever, that they could hire right this second to either as freelancers or as full-time staff. When Kate Welch was hired, like as a to be a full part of the crew, that was a big deal because they were putting a young woman on the writing crew, and frankly she's done a good job, but that's still that's decades overdue, and the other thing is, like, again, Drow and Orcs is a start, but that's still just a start. Austin Walker of Friends at the Table, right? Friends at the Table is pointed out that there's still huge problems like the Yuan Ti, which are just like laundered yellow peril, right? There's like all these like leftover just like racial stereotypes and indicators. And I mean, I know that this is work, and like, it's, if you're not like super woke, even if you're trying to be, it can be hard to like notice this stuff. But Wizards has the money, they have like the time and the bandwidth to do this. Like, their player base is more diverse than ever before. They should take this seriously, and it feels to me like they're not taking it seriously. I don't know. That's my take.
I mean, this is, and again, I would be more inclined to be more sympathetic to Wizards if this had come at any other time, but it shows that, like, if we want change for the better in places and spaces in which, we spend our time, the change is coming from people demanding it, right? It's Wizards is not going to do anything unless we as people who play Dungeons and Dragons force them to. And that's sad, but that's the reality.
No, but listen, if Frederick Douglass said this, power concedes nothing without a demand. Right? You are not going to get what you want by just waiting for Wizards to do the right thing. You are going to have to pressure them. And there are a lot of ways to do that. I know we've talked about how D&D is a monolith, and as much as we would like it to not be the game that 50+% of all RPG players engage with, that's the way it is. So until that changes, we have to attack this, gaming monopoly anywhere it hurts. And sometimes that means yelling at them on Twitter. I don't know.
In news of games that are not D&D, it's not too late to pre-order Swords Fall Welcome to Tikor, an Afro-punk campaign setting and system, which kickstarted a long time ago, but the date that it's going to be released is just, a couple months away. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah. In other news, we have the official title and content of the next D&D book. It is
Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Frost
Yeah.
Mariner. Yeah. We are headed to the frozen north.
Do you get it? It's like rhyme, but also rhyme. They're homophones.
I get it.
One's ice, one's a poem.
Matt, what do we think about this? What do we think about Icewind Dale?
Okay, so Icewind Dale is, I guess, the last location on the Sword Coast that people know about, that they haven't included in their adventure. They've done Waterdeep, they've done Baldur's Gate, they've done a little bit of Neverwinter, but nothing in the Forest North. Icewind Dale, there's been a lot of novels and video games set there.
Icewind Dale is a popular location. Yeah.
And this is very much a new team of writers, a lot of them women.
Oh, that's right.
That haven't written a module for Wizards yet. They've written many modules themselves, but we've got a bunch of new writers on this one.
Including one or two non-binary folks, I think I read. Anyway, it's a new team of writers. Is it an adventure book or it's a campaign, right?
Yes, it's a campaign module. It's going to be level 1 through, I think, early teens.
I guess it'll probably be like Descent to Avernus or any of our other big ones where it will include some setting stuff and then a full campaign. I tend to like those. It can be a lot to kind of pack into a single campaign, but I'm interested to see how this one shapes up.
The theme that they have said of this game is things like not supernatural horror, but maybe a little bit of psychological horror. I think I read that The Thing, John Carpenter's movie, was a big inspiration.
Big inspiration? Oh, I like that. Okay. Oh, yeah, so I gotta say, I'm not disappointed in this. I'm neutral on Icewind Dale. Unlike when they announced something for, a new Magic the Gathering tie-in, I'm not cranky about this. So I'm interested to see what happens.
I mean, we didn't even get to the fact that Wizards still has, like, cards in the official library that, like, depict the clan and stuff from older Magic the Gathering stuff.
No, they took
but they
all those
did
out.
take them out. I mean, again, only last week.
Sorry. This was the other thing. Yeah, Wizards finally removed Jihad and Crusade from their card library, and
Invoke
one that depicted
Prejudice.
the clan. Yeah, Invoke Prejudice. So good for them. I guess. Anyway, so I'm interested to see this Icewind Dale, how it comes out. The thing is, the last two campaign books were Descent to Avernus and I guess technically Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
Yes.
And those are both really good. I was a big fan of both of those. So Wizards has been doing a good job with, I think, their campaign books for sure. So I'm looking forward to this one. So that's our news. We're gonna answer one letter real quick before we talk about one-page RPGs.
Here's a letter that dovetails nicely with our last discussion. It reads, Matt and Rob, discovered your show last weekend. I've been listening at work all week. I just got to episode 74, Monster Mash 2, and decided to finish up my own alternative character creation method that's been bouncing around in my head for a while. I approach it slightly differently from you, taking inspiration from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Rolling for stats has been replaced entirely by starting at all 10s and gaining boosts as you go. Love your show, but I also hope it doesn't become big enough that your next 30-odd episodes that you can't read all your fan mail. By Charazu.
See, we had a whole episode on character creation, right? I don't... and we've talked a lot about attribute distribution. So, two things about this. I love the Pathfinder system. It does still have stat boosts from their ancestries, but they are only boosts. You can take optional penalties. This feels like a little bit less icky than, than other things. And, your ancestry scores are not as, critical, or they are about as important as your class and your background. So this is going to do things.
We love this suggestion, and if you're looking for a way even maybe easier than this to get rid of the ability boosts tied to species, it's pretty straightforward to let every player, pick a +2 to one score and a +1 to another score.
Yep. Listen, you should not have to make a hack of D&D to like get around this, but you can. You are the dungeon master, and if you don't like species or racial ability scores, don't use them. There are a lot of really good alternative point by character creation options out there. It is not mathematically difficult to get around this, so feel free to use them. Just do exactly what Matt said. Everybody gets +2 to one score and +1 to another. Make it
there are some corner cases of that. I think the hill dwarf, but it's easy enough to work around those corner cases.
Yeah. So let's talk about
yes. Thanks again, Charzu, for sending us this great example. There are lots of examples out there. We encourage you to use them. Okay, we'll talk about some one-page RPGs.
When you get home, you'll find that you've been
All right, Rob, what is a role-playing? No. What is a one-page role-playing game? I'm so confused. Can you give me a definition?
Webster's defines a role-playing game as a one page is exactly what it sounds like. It is a role-playing game where all of the rules and everything that you need to play, aside from like dice or whatever, is contained in you guessed it, folks, one page. And you might think, but Rob and Matt, my core rule book is 500 pages long. How could you possibly condense a role-playing game down to one page? Well, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, and I think these are types of games where usually the resolution mechanic is reduced to a single thing, a single type of roll of usually one type of die, and that's it. And they can be really, really fun. I think one of the reasons that I like to play them is they tend to be lower on the prep scale than practically most other types of games. Not necessarily so, but in general, they can be really easy to run.
If you pick the right one, there can be essentially like zero friction between being like, hey, you guys want to play this? And let's play it. And, as I'm sure as you all know, if you've ever tried to sell your group on a new system or a new idea or even get a role-playing game started, probably the most difficult step is going from we want to play to let's play, right? And a one page, again, some of them can actually be sort of difficult, but most of them you're like, okay, here's one page, read it, and then boom, you're off to the races.
I think if they have any sort of weakness, and it's that they definitely require a stronger understanding of what the tone or type of play you're going to do is for your players. And we're going to talk about some specific examples, but you really got to sell these one-page ideas to your players. This is a goofy game where you're all bear criminals. This is a parody of every Star Trek you've ever seen, right?
Most of them are fun because they're either a send-up of a genre or a type of RPG, or they have like a funny gimmick. These are not without exception, but for the most part, not like super gritty or tactical or crunchy games. So if your players like that, and by the way, that is a totally valid way to play. Obviously, these are not going to be a good fit. They also are radically different from specifically Dungeons and Dragons, which has lots of rules, in that they are mostly rules light. And that means that your players need to be cooperative, and that you are probably going to have to do a little bit of more creative interpretation as a dungeon master. However, the trade-off is that there's just like a lot less to keep track of, so you can devote your energy to adjudicating dice rolls and coming up with clever jokes and, figuring out what the effect of any particular action is rather than looking up rules.
The nice thing about them, and I think why, if you haven't yet, you should try one with your group is, like we said, Usually much less prep time on the Dungeon Master. Usually, these games are designed to be played once or a couple times, and usually they're set up so that in a short session, maybe as short as an hour, you can reach the resolution, the end of some story.
Yeah.
Great for maybe playing online over a Zoom call as well.
You could, run these continuously, but you're probably going to reach a satisfactory level of play or conclusion within one session. Again, maybe you and your players love it so much that you want to do it every week, but I doubt it. But that's okay. That's they're one page, that's totally valid. And the thing is, these are great launching points. A lot of these games function similarly to lower or less crunchy rule sets, like Dungeon World or Fate or something like that. So you can, if your players like it, you can then be like, great, we're going to run a longer campaign in a similar. Most of these have resolution mechanics that are more like you try to do something, you roll a dice or draw a card or whatever, and then it has degrees of success and failure, which is how a lot of lighter rule sets work, and it's a good introduction to those.
The last thing I'll say generally about this is that the interpretation of what happens in a roll, if all you're used to is Dungeons and Dragons, requires a lot more interaction and narration by both players and dungeon masters. So there are types of games, where maybe if you've only played Dungeons and Dragons, you might not be used to being like, well, my character, Cybok Telluri, is a long trained with the psychics of Anderon 5, and he reaches out with his feelings to mind meld with the living energy crystal and then I'll tell you something about the psychics, right, that I trained with, right? Mm-hmm. It's very much more of this open, this is what happens. I reach behind the counter of the bank teller, and of course there's 2 shotguns there, right? Yes, go.
Well, last week, or when we talked about the axis of math nerd and theater nerd, this is definitely more along the one pages are definitely more along the theater nerd axis. But everybody can benefit from both. There's ways to play that everybody can enjoy.
Okay, should we get into some examples of some of our favorite one-page RPGs?
Absolutely.
Who wants to go first?
Why don't I go first by talking about my... I love this RPG so much. I've never actually played it, but I'm thinking about one of my games that's on hiatus. I think would be a really good fit for this, and I want to see if maybe they'd enjoy it. But it's Big Gay Orcs. I love Big Gay Orcs. Longtime listeners will know that I, Rob, am a orc fan. I think that they are fun to play as something other than evil barbarians. I love subverting tropes. I think big, muscly green people are hilarious. And I love making them gay. It's wonderful. So this is
a game by Grant Howitt, who is one of the king's princes of one-page RPGs. Yeah. And what happens in Big Gay Orcs, right? Most of these games, I think this is a great example to start with, usually have a very specific thing that is going to happen, a specific kind of story you're going to tell. What's the story of Big Gay Orcs? The
subtitle is 1,000 Orchid Blossoms, a love story. And yeah, it's very simple. You are a champion among orcs. The warlord is dead by an assassin's hand. You have received orders from the Great Khan. Your fortress is the last defense that stands between the armies of your enemy and your home city, and you must sell your lives dearly. This may be your last night alive. As the sun sets, you see the fires of the enemy on the horizon and think of the life you've spent alongside the other orcs here. Can you tell them how you really feel here at the end of everything?
Oh, beautiful.
And yeah, you're just telling a story where you either want to be a hero, run away with your true love, die gloriously in battle, get revenge, tell someone how you really feel. And yeah, you just roll to fight, to make out. You try to maintain your hope pool. And
there's a lot of either making out or selling your life dearly.
That's right. You either die gloriously in battle or you make out with your true love, sometimes both. It's very Sacred Band of Thebes. I love it. It is honestly a delight to me. I love tragic gay heroes on the walls of, a failing fortress. Everyone is gay. Everyone is a hero. It's a wonderful, wonderful one pager. I think
this is a great one pager if you haven't played one before, in that as the dungeon master, you could probably come up with, okay, what's the home city you're defending? What type of army or forces are arrayed against your big gay orcs? But it's really great in sort of supporting the dungeon master in that it gives you a map of the fortress you're defending, which is a lot more info than other one-page RPGs give you. So that's super nice. And it also gives you a ton of events to spice up the sort of night of combat and making out, of things that mess with your orcs' plans to fight or love.
And you can, if your players come with ideas in mind, that's great, but literally there's a table for everything from your orc's name to their role to their reputation and their relationship, to other players. So you literally don't have to, nobody has to know or do anything. You can just look at it, start rolling, and be like, great, you're Salak, you're fearless, caring, an axe thrower sergeant, and you are in love with Kilnash, the brutal, forgiving Omen Scryer. Bam.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's all these events, that you just sort of go through. It's just this is a very well designed. I think it's technically probably more words than some of our other systems, but it's still just one page. You roll and resolve things with a red die and a black die and a white die for your roll. Easy peasy, no problem whatsoever. I love this.
I think this is a common pattern we're going to see in a lot of one-page RPGs because it works so well. Give your players attention between two things. In this one, specifically, telling your true love how you feel, making out, and dying a glorious death in battle and defending your orc.
That's right.
Orc nation.
Can you lean in? Can you do both? Can you have it all as a big gay orc? That's really the question of big gay orcs.
And again, I think the fun thing is all right, this, like other one-page RPGs, gives you a strong story, and it's play to figure out what happens, right? Play to figure out how you do this story, and you're going to have a lot of fun with your players if you try this one. Okay, Big Gay Orcs by Grant Howitt.
Yeah.
All right, the next one I want to talk about, one I've played in and run a couple times. This is my go-to one-page RPG, is Lasers and Feelings by John Harper. In Lasers and Feelings, you are the crew of the interstellar scout ship Raptor. Your mission is to explore uncharted regions of space, deal with aliens, and defend the consortium against space dangers. Captain Darcy has been overcome by the strange psychic entity known as Something Else, leaving you to fend for yourselves while he recovers. This is a one-page RPG of all of your favorite Star Trek, Stargate, Orville games, with an emphasis, I think, on the silly. Players, after you choose your role and identity and goal, have just one stat: a rating between lasers at a 5 and feelings at a 2. All actions are either a lasers roll or a feelings roll.
A feelings roll.
Whether you're good at calm, rational, or technological action, or passionate or emotional action, and then that's it. You're either good at lasers, good at feelings, or good at a little bit of both. and it's perfect.
Like big gay orcs, you resolve things by exactly 2 ways. And listen, when you think about it, isn't everything really just a laser or a feeling mat? You know, there's really, you know, it's anything can be resolved one way or another.
What is it that the anthropologists call it? It's like between Dionysus and
the Dionysus Apollonian, guns and butter.
Guns and butter.
You know, it's
okay, guns and butter, Dionysus and Apollonian.
Wait, I bet we can. Sorry, let's write this down. I bet we can make a hack called Guns and Butter of lasers and feelings in like 30 seconds. Let's not do it now, but I bet we could easily do that. Yeah, like a civilization building game called Guns and Butter.
Everyone's got a civilization. They're trying to build it based off of guns or butter. They're trying
to conquer the world through guns or butter. Yeah, let's do that.
And here's the thing, I'm glad you brought that up, Rob, is while the rules for creating a space adventure have similar tables, like, you know, are you going to be up against Zorgon the Conqueror, alien brainworms, space pirates, an evil rogue admiral? Is there a quantum tunnel? Is there someone trying to reverse time or rip a hole in reality? Great chart for this. There have been a ton of hacks of lasers and feelings. For example, I believe there's one called Swords and Sorcery, if you want to do this in a traditional fantasy setting.
Another great one is Tactical Waifu, which is if you want to play a goofy anime game where you are a anime schoolgirl babe with an AK-47. It's just
your rating is between waifu and tactical.
I believe so. Yeah. Everything's either a tactical role or a waifu role. You're either trying to get senpai's attention or protect the school from insurgents or something.
Before we move on to another one, I think there's some great, again, all on one page GM advice here that works for pretty much all one-page RPGs and even your other role-playing games.
Oh, yes. I also like the GM advice is just 2 paragraphs, but it's perfect.
Can I read a couple sentences here?
Read it.
Play to find out how they defeat the threat. Introduce threats by showing evidence of its recent badness. Before a threat does something to your characters, show signs that it's about to happen, then ask them what they're going to do. Zorgon charges the mega cannons on his ship. What do you do? Perfect advice. Build a threat, give your players a chance to respond, and then find out how they confront that threat, right? Ask questions and build on the answers. Have you encountered a void cultist before? Where? What happened?
Yeah. It's perfect.
In my most recent game of Lasers and Feelings, players were able to, merge with an ancient void crystal, seduce a rogue space pirate, and then betray them and, Darth Vader them off into the void in a spinning shuttlecraft and reverse time and basically fix everything. It was very satisfying.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Lasers and Feelings by John Harper. What else do we got?
I want to talk, many people are familiar with this one, but if you haven't played any before, a really easy and great one to start with is Everyone is John. Everyone is John has been around for a while now. And this is a little different than other one-shots, or one-pages, but it's a lot of fun. And it's exactly like it sounds like. Everyone is John, who is insane, and you are one of the voices, and you compete for control of John, and you try to make him do things. And he wakes up in the morning, and you try to either keep him alive or fulfill your obsession, and each of you is sort of competing for control of John. And it's exactly as bonkers and bizarre as it sounds like. Every game is like wildly different, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is by Michael B. Sullivan, and I think if you enjoy TV shows or stuff like Doom Patrol or what was that M. Night Shyamalan movie, Legion, for example. What was the...
You think it's Split?
Split. Yes, Split, the one with the guy who plays Patrick Stewart's character from the X-Men, but in the M. Night Shyamalan verse.
McAvoy.
Yes. You got your McAvoy.
James?
Yeah.
John
McAvoy. Everyone is John McAvoy.
Everyone is John
fun
McAvoy.
hack of Everyone is John.
Now listen, there are some touchy things about the depiction of people with But I don't think this is meant to be an actual, nobody's saying anything about real schizophrenics with this. Obviously, if you have people in your group who might find this uncomfortable, be wary. But it's just everyone is inside John's head trying to accomplish their own tasks, and it's just like, it's very easy to play. It's very fun. It's hard to lose or win. It's an even shorter one pager. There's only like 10 paragraphs to read. It's great.
And if I was running this and, again, with some concerns about the depiction of mental issues, right, I would turn it up to 11 and make it a sort of fantasy thing like Split, where this is a person with supernatural identities. Yeah,
or he could just be possessed by ghosts or demons, right? Each of you is a ghost, like, possessing John. Like, it doesn't have to be like actual, like, mental illness if you're uncomfortable with that.
Right.
You can easily make this game something else entirely and still keep the rules the same.
Or, you could, becoming John Malkovich or something
right.
like that.
Oh, that's really funny.
There's a bunch of different people trying to get into this person's head through a tunnel off the New Jersey Turnpike. Or, you could, I think one of my favorite ideas for running this is pick a famous person from history or pop culture, and everyone is one of their competing desires. I think I would run everyone is David Bowie, and then one player gets to be the Thin White Duke, another player gets to be Ziggy Stardust, etc., etc. And you see which type of David Bowie comes out.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, I got, let's see, one more. This is one you might be familiar with because I think a lot of streaming shows have done it. And this is Honey Heist.
Oh yeah, Honey Heist. Honey Heist is a big deal, and it's been around for a while. And it's very simple. Matt, how would you describe it?
Honey Heist is very simple. It's another one by all-star one-page creator Grant Howitt. In this, you are a bear and a criminal.
You are a goddamn bear.
A goddamn bear and a goddamn criminal. You have two stats, bear and criminal. And the fun idea is not only you're a bunch of bears trying to steal the biggest haul of honey of all time. So it's very silly. You get to wear hats. But the mechanic of this one is one that I love. We've taken the basic idea of, you have two stats like lasers and feelings. But anytime you fail at being a bear or being a criminal, you move more in one direction. And if you become too much bear or too much criminal, you either go on a bear rampage or betray the party as a pure criminal.
You'll note that, again, the structure of a lot of these games is the same. Basically, two stats that, resolve things or play off of each other. But they can play entirely differently. And the story you're telling is radically different, right? So, Honey Heist is obviously a whole different, journey than Lasers and Feelings, even though structurally, on a very basic level, they might have similarities. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one where I think you, as the dungeon master of Honey Heist, should definitely build off the silliness of your characters, their complicated plan to steal honey from HoneyCon 2017. In one game I ran this, the villain was like an Elon Musk type trying to Silicon Valley-ize bee honey production. Send bees to Mars, and they were after his technology. It's a fun one where you can do lots of silly things.
We talked about why you might want to do these, but if we get a lot of questions about people who are trying to start a game, trying to get a group together. If you are having trouble getting started or getting your players to show up, or really running into any friction that has to do with the actual, game happening, this is a good way to overcome those limitations, right? So if you've got players that want to play and you're having trouble getting them to commit, be like, hey, here's one page. Let's sit down and do some Lasers and Feelings, right? Let's sit down and, all Outta Bubblegum. And this, and then once they've done it, once you've gotten together maybe one or two times, then you'd be like, all right, great. Now I've got a plan for a longer running campaign. We've managed to meet a couple times in a row. How about we do this?
The one caveat I will add is that if you have players who have never played a role-playing game before, this can be a great introduction. But if you have a mixed group, sometimes I think it can be difficult in like, what is a role-playing game? What is it that I can do? Is sort of a barrier I've run into in mixed groups of like, oh, hey, here are people who are familiar with a role-playing game, who have played lots of games with me, with one or two people who've never played one before. So I guess I've had just a little bit of mixed success trying to bring those people in and be like, you can do whatever you want in this, kind of thing.
Definitely gauge interest before you commit, but I think most people, if properly set up, will enjoy something like this. It's also a good opportunity for you as a DM or a GM to do something that's a little bit easier and requires less prep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rob, I love this idea of hacking or making your own one-page RPG. Rob, would it be too crazy, and let us know what you think via email or Twitter, to have a no prize given because we don't have any money or anything like that, but a Dungeon Master of None listener one-page RPG contest? If you want to try your hand at writing a one-page RPG and send it to us, we could read everyone's submissions on the air and share them.
This would be a good time for us to either work together or each do our own.
Okay, what's your idea for one? I've got one.
I'm absolutely gonna do Guns and Butter,
okay,
Matt.
Guns and Butter.
I fucking love Guns and Butter. I'm gonna make it a civilization building like strategy RPG, where your fledgling nation has to rule the world through either guns or butter. So we'll in a week or two we'll come back with I'll do this one. Matt, do you have one in mind?
I've got an idea. I don't have a catchy name for it yet, but maybe you can help me out with this. I'm thinking something like Sliders and Synapses, or Dudes in the High Castle. So you are either you are a group of stoners who has stumbled upon a device that will let you slide into alternate realities. Anytime something goes wrong, you change reality. Your goal is to figure out what is different about this reality, discover it so that you can program it into your quantum computer tunneling device and try and skip back to your reality. So some of them will be easy, like, oh, we show up, everyone in this reality is apes.
Spliffs and sliders.
Spliffs and sliders. There we go. And if you fail, maybe you have to get a little more high, and that makes things and so
makes things harder.
So every time you change reality, you have to go outside. Okay, all the stop signs are green in this one. Okay, in this one, everyone's an ape, but they're all attacking us for not being apes. We gotta deal with them and then get back to our computer and reprogram it.
All right, so put that out there. If you've got one of these you want to contribute, we will read it on the episode after we introduce ours, which we'll put together. And we'll share them all, and hopefully some of these will be fun and you can play them yourselves.
Okay, the official Dungeon Master of None one-page RPG design, not contest, bonanza, exhibition.
Yeah. Expo, the one-pager expo, sponsored by Dungeon Master of None.
If you'd like to try your hand at making a one-page RPG, write it, share it with us on Twitter or over email, and in a couple weeks, we will see what we've got.
Okay, so thanks everybody for listening. As always, rate, review, subscribe, share, tell your friends.
It really helps. We're almost at the top of the rankings. Just leave us a 5-star review and we'll be there.
Just give us that review. Listen, we just want to beat Dungeons and Dads, okay? Or Dungeons and Dungeon Dads, whatever they are.
Is that a real show?
Yeah, so please, to do those things, it helps. We're going to beat Dungeons and Daddies, which is, yes, Matt, an actual podcast is for dads who play D&D or something like that. I don't know.
Call your Dungeons and Daddies.
Call me Dungeon Daddy. It's not actually a BDSM podcast. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep rolling them dice.